Exactly. Great, good afternoon, and welcome again. We're delighted to be joined live and in person by Stefania Giannini, who is the Assistant Director General of UNESCO in charge of education, and she is here as today is the International Day of Education. Please, welcome. Don't worry,
Yeah.
yeah.
Working?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And yes, we are just coming from celebrating the 5th International Day for Education. And this year, the Director General of UNESCO, Andrea Zule, decided to dedicate this International Day to girls and women in Afghanistan, who have been, as everybody knows, deprived of their right to education. Currently, all Afghan girls and women above the age of 12 are denied access to secondary schools and more recently to universities following decisions of the de facto authorities. So a few words about the state of the art and which kind of measure can be taken, and then open to questions. And we just had a panel with the real voices of a leader, school leader from Kabul, now moved to the place to Rwanda, and a student who actually was the founder of the very first and unique boarding school in Kabul, and obliged, of course, to flee the country in 2021. A student of this institution and an activist who actually brought their own vision. And everything was discussed within the follow-up to the Transforming Education Summit. While the world is celebrating the importance of education, we cannot forget girls and women in Afghanistan. That's the vision of UNESCO. No country in the world should bar women and girls from receiving education, as education is a fundamental human right that must be respected, and the international community has the responsibility to ensure that the rights of Afghan girls and women are restored without delay. Well, just giving some figures and measure what is at stake. When the Taliban took power in 2021, UNESCO warned the world about the fragility of the achievements while pleading the reinforced collective efforts at technical and political levels to ensure continuity of quality and equitable education for all Afghans, especially girls and women. The decisions by de facto authorities threaten to wipe out the development gains made by the country over the past 20 years, from 2001 to 2021. Afghanistan actually saw a tenfold increase in enrollment at all education levels, from around 1 million students in 2001 to around 10 million, with the support of the international community, including UNESCO. During this period, the number of girls in primary school increased from almost zero to the current number, which is 2.5 million. And in August 2021, 4 in 10 primary pupils were girls. Women's participation in Afghan higher education also increased almost 20 times, from some 5,000 at the beginning of this century to the current number, until at least last December, which is around over 100,000. And currently, 2.5 million school-age Afghan girls and young women are out of school, 1.2 million as the consequence of the decision of the Taliban recently. So what can we do? What are we doing as the UN and especially UNESCO? We are trying to work on the ground with Afghan people, for Afghan people. We are, for instance, providing community-based literacy classes that are targeting now some 25,000 young people, especially in rural areas, including mostly adolescent girls above the age of 15. We are also using some effective tools like radio channels, which can reach out directly home, and also based on the discussion we just had in the panel, listening to these young girls, educators, also young leader in education, this is a very effective way, as the radio is accessible to more than 2/3 of the population in the country. So is in some regions the only way to reach out directly to people. And we also establish an e-learning center in Kabul to support the youth, especially women. Once again, of course, e-learning cannot be framed and seen as a solution for all and replacing the role of schools. We say also in this important process of transforming education globally, especially in this country, but of course we can leverage the power of technology, at least to fill some gaps. When it comes to higher education, we care very much at UNESCO. We do think that banning women from university will have a catastrophic consequence on the development of the country, to put it simply. We are now mobilizing partners to provide some feasible solutions like scholarships in neighboring countries, which of course are not a long-term solution, but still at least can fill the gap in the coming months and years. Well, all these, once again, because we think that the international community has a responsibility to take this country as a priority still, not forget that is the only country in the world where women and girls don't receive any education above primary school, and this is simply unacceptable. I think I can stop here.
Perfect.
Stefania.
Thank you. And we'll have some questions. Valeria, please, Rebecca.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much on behalf of ANCA for this press conference. Valeria Rebecco from ANSA News Agency. I want to ask you about another complicated situation. Ukraine, we are 1 month away from 1 year anniversary from the start of the war. Which is the state of the education for girls and children in Ukraine right now? It has been better, worse compared to the beginning of the conflict. Thank you so much.
Well, I can take immediately. Thank you. So, of course, it's a totally different context, but still a very challenging country, as we all know, where, for other reasons, war running the right to education is not for all immediately available. The government, that's of course the main important difference to take into account, was since the beginning of the war very much taking the leadership and the ownership of the education system through especially digital learning. We were, as UNESCO, we are through the cluster, the UN cluster on the ground, discussing with the Minister Sergei Scarlett. I remember the very first meeting on Zoom, of course, on the 13th March last year. And he asked clearly two important contributions from UNESCO that we are providing the country with. First, the devices in order to reach teachers, teachers who are on the move and teachers who are displaced in the country, and make them available for providing their teaching. And through a partnership with Google, we provided last year 3 steps, some 50,000 devices for teachers. But the second important part of the work we are doing, still in cooperation with the Ukrainian government, is the social emotional support, because there is, of course, still a situation of conflict, and learners and the entire education community is very much traumatized, and it's not easy to make a continuity of learning, despite schools are in some regions of the country open, or the classroom provided through digital learning. So on this important part of the work, we already develop, UNESCO as a tradition in teachers training, especially on the social-emotional part, and we are cooperating with other partners, Global Partnership for Education. They are just finalizing a special window for Ukraine. So there are a lot of also financial contribution for that country. I mean, there is a huge risk of brain drain, because, as you know, 5 million refugees are already in the move. They are affecting the neighboring countries. So it's very much important to support the government to keep through also classes in Ukrainian language, which is not easy to find available already in neighboring countries, and to support this strong ownership, which is already well established, in my opinion. Of course, education is the right education is very much at risk whenever there is a conflict, wherever there is a huge crisis. But it's a very different landscape, and I think that concrete solutions like those I mentioned, and of course other partners are doing the same on the ground, can help, I think.
Thank you. Efrain?
Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Ms. Giannini. Two questions on Afghanistan. The first one concerning your community-based literacy classes. Is that being done in a safe environment, or are you running risk of being, I don't know, arrested by the de facto authorities? Do girls feel safe to be in those classes in an environment where they're banned from learning? How is that happening logistically? And the second question on the scholarships in neighboring countries. Which countries? Is it Pakistan, Iran? Like, what are some of these main countries? And is it easy, again, for an Afghan young girl to leave the country to go study abroad?
Sure, thank you. Well, community-based literacy classes have been developed since many years from UNESCO, as we are running the huge literacy program since many years, and it was necessary to reach out in rural zones to something which was not the formal education channel. Today, the situation is very much different, as we know. And yeah, I would say we have an office in Kabul. We have our colleagues based there. And as much as possible, they're working in safe context. Of course, I didn't receive any alert on this point. But as I heard a little bit the first part of the noon briefing, as Stefan mentioned before, for education as well as many other topics in Afghanistan, it depends very much on the region of the country. So the work we are doing is about also selecting those regions where we can provide these community-based literacy classes as much as possible in a safe context for girls and for those who are the beneficiaries, including also teachers that are part of the project. And the second question, yes, we started to discuss and at university level, because this is a policy that, of course, must include the government, but as the main providers of scholarships are, as we all know, universities, especially in Pakistan, as you mentioned, and other countries in the regions, also India and all this part of the Asian, South Asian subcontinent. The idea of scholarship cannot, in my opinion, cannot for the next months, we see the situation now, it's evolving, but if will be still at stake, higher education, we have to think and move more creatively and also involve the international community. We are thinking of an alliance of universities, for instance, to make this a huge responsibility, a collective effort to host Afghan girls and women in the coming months, because otherwise, as Shabana, one of these young lady, was talking in the other room in our panel today, you know, the impact on economic development and the social cohesion of the country will be devastating. We already learned from lessons in the 90s, and so I think this is something that can be very much taken into account when you build a policy. So the ambition is to go beyond the region as much as possible, according to the evolution of the situation, of course.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Thank you very much for this briefing. I'm Yvonne Murray with RTE, the Irish national broadcaster. So my question is to follow up a little bit on the community schools and really drill down on that point. Are you running a risk carrying out these operations, given what's happening on the ground now? Are the teachers potentially in danger of running afoul of the authorities for teaching girls in that context? And how can you protect them? How can you keep them safe? And my second question is on e-learning. How practical is that in Afghanistan? What percentage, for example, of school kids have access to the internet?
Well, the first question, I mean, this is where exactly we see in action the nexus between humanitarian and development. I mean, when it comes to provide education and to assure continuity of learning as much as possible. And of course, all the measures taken within the UN system, UNESCO is part of the big family, are under the best condition we can have of security, of course, and nobody can assure that something may happen, but there is no specific worry about this initiative. By the way, the community-based literacy program has been run since many, many years. So there is a very well-developed system of network in the country to be sure that those communities can really host the classroom, and teachers can be, and girls or learners can be supported as they should be in a safe environment. It's part of the transition between the humanitarian part and the development part. On the other side, a basic human right is at risk. And just listening to the voices of these girls and women, young women who talk to us, to all the community, also the international community connected with us today, and they say very simply, they put it very simply, I mean, okay, as the UN, you have to discuss with the de facto authorities, you have to develop the political, diplomatic conversation with them, but please work on the ground, work for people there, especially women and girls, and with people there. Otherwise, we already learned the lesson from the past. So that's also the message which comes to us concretely from those who are most affected. Sorry, the second question was about digital learning?
E-learning, yes.
Yeah, e-learnings, well, this brings me, unfortunately, I don't have a figure to share with you, not right now, but this, why that? Because there is also a huge challenge about the lack of data in the country, especially when it comes to connectivity, when it comes to how many children or girls in this case can really benefit from e-learning. And this is part of the UN program for education in Afghanistan. We are taking data monitoring, so I hope we can collect briefly, shortly, some more updated figures. However, I mentioned the radio channel as the most effective tool to reach out from Kabul, at least, because as far as we know, connectivity is not a common good for all the rural zones. So I think that courses, lessons in classrooms or online cannot be a solution for the entire country, for sure.
Thank you.